So hello everyone, and welcome to the attack or not to attack. That is the question. It's not to be or not to be, it's attack or not to attack. And I hope that you're familiar with it. If you're not, that's okay, because this is the framework that is quite popular and useful, especially if you think about the threat management and if you think about threat hunting. And I will be talking a little bit about that framework. I will be... Would you be so kind to... Hoćete li ovo zatvoriti u radiju?
Može.
A, dolaziš mi. Please come in.
Ili ne?
Zauzmite poziciju. Ja sam tu. The more the merrier. Ovo si sve natjelo ovdje kad ste mogli biti na suncu.
Možemo i predavanje na sunce.
A ne, bilo bi mi hoće. Pošelja od moje bi se jako krčili. Okay, let's start over. Welcome everyone, and welcome to the attack or not to attack. That is the question. As I said like 2 minutes ago, it's not about to be or not to be, it's about attack or not to attack. The framework that will give you an overview of what you should and can do in order to protect yourself and to do the threat hunting, to identify the threats, and to grow your teams. Some of you are probably familiar with it. I know that some of you are. And the idea behind the attack framework is to give you something tangible, something that you can use in order to communicate the threats with other people, because we had different languages before we started to use the attack framework. So let's start first with the introduction of who I am, and then I will introduce the lecture itself. So my name is Robert Petrunić, and some of you know me, I know some of you, and obviously some of you do not know me. So I worked as almost anything that you can do in the IT. So I worked as a repair guy, networking guy, a developer, sysadmin. I was a CTO, working in the security a lot. So basically, I covered everything from the 1996, when I started to work in the IT, all the way to 2021, which is how many years? Too much, if you ask me. Now, the thing is that I managed to start my company. Actually, I'm self-employed, which means that the company is me. That's a bad thing. So I don't have employees in the company, and I work as an information security consultant, incident handler, so a little bit about computer forensics also, and penetration tester and technical training. So, by the way, while you will be enjoying the day tomorrow in the morning, I will have a training 9 to 1:30, because I have training to a specific customer that I have to cover in the morning, as I did today. So I couldn't be here at the keynote, unfortunately. Now, my mission is to transfer the knowledge and experience as a technical trainer. And my vision is to make the world a better and more secure place. I hope that with some of these type of lectures I will be able to do that. And by the way, so that you know, what other people think about me is not my business. I don't care. So, this training is about Mitre attack framework. And I will tell you who the target audience is. I will tell you what can you do with it. Actually, I will try to answer the question what you can do with it. And I will try to tell you why should you actually care about it. So I will try to give you the answer of what that is and how you can actually use it and profit from it. Now, if you ever open up the web page of Mitre attack framework, this is the part of it that you probably saw. And this part is the think that is confusing to some people. And actually this part is giving you what the meter attack framework is supposed to give you. And this is knowledge base and common language to communicate about what? About adversary TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. Now, I told you that I work as a technical trainer, security consultant, incident handler, penetration tester. So I cover different areas of computer security, obviously. And the point is that when I do what I do, I have specific techniques that I'm using to break into the system. Like for instance, if I have to do the pen testing of your internal network, and you give me limited user account in the Active Directory, probability is that 1, 2, 3 hours later, I will have domain admin privileges. That's the probability, at least during the pen test. Because the idea is quite simple. There are misconfigurations in the infrastructure, no matter what you do. You will always have some misconfigurations. That's why people want to have pen tests, in order to identify these configurations. Because sometimes, even if you did everything by the book, it doesn't mean that this is okay. So, what are these tactics, techniques, and procedures? So, meter attack framework defines the tactics, and it's telling you what it is and why they are using it. So, the tactics will give the adversary, actually, not give adversary, to give you an option to understand what the adversary is trying to do. So why and what they're trying to do. And these are, if you go back, one slide back, these are the columns in this matrix, like reconnaissance, resource development, initial access, execution, persistence. So these are basically the tactics. We also have techniques. Please come in. We also have techniques. How? So how they do that. And there are sub-techniques explaining additional things in it. You will see it later in the demo. And by the way, you can download the presentation and the demo from the link that was at the beginning of the slides. But I'm going to give it to you again when I open up the demo. And you will be able to download the full demo, which is 1 hour. And I don't have time, 1 hour in this time slot to show you what I wanted to show you. But you will be able to download the demo and the presentation from the link that I will share with you. So, how they do something. I was just talking with my former student over here, and he told me that he is dealing with the detection on a daily basis, right? And the idea is that you cannot detect everything. Your tools are not capable of detecting everything because they are not fine-tuned yet. And what you will be able to do as a threat hunter, for instance, you should be able to use these techniques and sub-techniques in the meter attack framework to identify the possible ways and techniques that the hackers are using. Just to give you an example. A few years ago, you could run anything from PowerShell that you wanted to. Anything. And you can do whatever you wanted to. You can run a PowerShell single liner that would download something from the internet and then run it on that machine. Today, that's not the case. Because the antivirus will block it. If you try to use IEX in the PowerShell, so execute something, no. Antivirus should give you the alert and block it. And that's the idea. By using the techniques and by looking at what the adversary actually do, the antivirus vendors, especially in this particular case, I'm talking about the Microsoft Defender, learned how to prevent these kind of things. So, techniques will tell you how they will do something, and this is the way they achieve the tactical goals. So I'm going to run the script that will identify the users on the domain. To go back to my previous story, if you give me a limited user account in your domain, I will be able to list all of the user accounts that you have and all of the groups that you have. And that's by design. That's not vulnerability at all. And you have to understand that this thing could be a precursor into the further attacks. And you have to be able to recognize it and to see whether this particular computer is supposed to be dealing with that or using this kind of techniques. And then we have procedures. How? This is basically grouping of the techniques. Now, I could stay on this slide for 2 hours probably, but we have 45 minutes only, so I have to continue because I have a few more slides to go through. So, to repeat what I just said, this is a knowledge base of adversary techniques. It's organized into the tactics and techniques with sub-techniques, and this is called TTP, tactics, techniques, and procedures. So it's covering multiple platforms. It's not covering only Windows. It has the pre-attack framework, enterprise attack framework, that is covering Windows, Mac, Linux, mobile, cloud. That's the idea. And you can identify and learn from it. I'm learning from it. When I do the pen test, I literally learn from it to see what the usual suspects do. And when I see what they do, then I understand what I should be looking for when I do the pen test. So I was using it for that. But if you do something else, you can also use it. And that's what this lecture is for, to tell you where you can apply the Mitigation and Detection framework. So I have a simple example. You can have a tactic, which is reconnaissance, technique in it, which is active scanning, and sub-technique scanning, IP blocks, vulnerability scanning, or whatever. I will have something similar in my demo. I will show you the process of breaking in, the initial foothold, hacking one machine, and from that machine spreading the wings to all the other machines in the network. And I will put the techniques on the slide. So I will tell you which techniques I was actually using to get in. And if you are capable of recognizing this in your security operations center, then you can recognize that somebody is trying to break in and cut it off in routes, not allowing it to go any further than that. So, these slides are, some of the slides are for you. So let's dissect this example a little bit further. I did it on the previous slide. Framework also defines something that we all want to see, which is mitigation and detection. So I want to be able to understand how to fight against this. I'm using it as a pen tester to break in. But I, as a security consultant, also want to use that for mitigation and detection. I have a bipolar. So I'm a multiple person in one single body. Apologies. So mitigations, from previous example, reconnaissance, is quite a difficult task to do. Because reconnaissance is finding out the info about the company, which is usually available online with free tools. You don't even have to connect to the system if you want to identify these things, in some cases. So it might be difficult, it might be challenging, but yet it could be done if the technique is explained in the Mitre and you know how to detect it. And Mitre will also try to help you with that. And these are the examples of some of the techniques. I will just skip this slide. We don't need it for now. It's just for your reference later on, because I will give you the link down below. So to make it simple, this is the most important slide at this stage of the lecture. We have a knowledge base and common language to communicate about adversary tactics, techniques, and procedures. Now, let's go a bit further than that. Let's go into the detection phase. Let's try to think about Okay, I have a company, I have systems, I have client computers, server computers, I'm using cloud, I'm using mobile devices, I'm using everything that all the normal companies are using. The question is, how can I detect the adversary? And the adversary will think the same way. The hackers will think the same way. How can I go around their protections? How can I prevent them from identifying what I did? How can I get away with it, to put it simple? Now, if we think about the bottom of this pyramid, like hash values, you probably know that every single file can be hashed. When you hash the file, this is in the jest. And basically it's telling you, giving you some kind of fingerprint of that file. If you change one single bit in it, the hash will change significantly. So the hash values can be easily detected. So by using the hash value, if the file changes, you can easily detect the change in the file. But the point is, the malicious user will change the file, and the file will still do the same thing. For instance, if I have to go around the antivirus, I can just take the file, open it in debugger, change it, and repackage it in the exe file, and manually doing it in 15 to 20 minutes when I'm familiar with the process, and I have something that none of the antiviruses will probably be able to detect. So the hash value is it's trivial to detect. But the whole point is that I, as a malicious user, still have an option to deal with it. IP address change is easy to detect. Domain name, simple, network, all of these things are from trivial all the way to tough. And as you can see, the adversary cannot change tactics, techniques, and procedures so easily. They can change the hash value. They can change the attacking IP address. Domain names of the command and control servers. This could be easily changed, just like that. But the TTP is the way I operate. And when you see the way that I operate, you can easily recognize me. And that's why, among other things, the meter attack framework is being used to categorize the APTs, advanced persistent threats, because they have the same modus operandi, right? They do the things the same way. Like in my demo, I will be using a Metasploit framework. Every single antivirus on the planet will recognize that. So the hackers will not be using it. If they do, and they will, at the end, they will make this payload a little bit different than the original one that Metasploit framework will do, and they will be undetected again. So you can use that modus operandi, and they cannot change it so easily, because this is the way they operate. If I learn to do something this way, I'm going to repeat that over and over again, because it works. You shouldn't change something, it works. Now, how does this actually fit into the cyber campaign? You probably heard about it too. This is the knowledge that came from the, help me out, the company that is dealing with the big military contracts producing Lockheed Martin, thank you. So it comes from the Lockheed Martin labs. They had to deal with the advanced persistent threats all the time. Because if you break into the Lockheed Martin's network, you have everything. You have the knowledge, you have the subcontractors, and you have a really big network that you can squeeze and steal the money from it, or earn the money from it. Just try to imagine if you talk about American-Chinese issues. If you're in China and you break into the Lockheed Martin, oh, that's it. Or North Korea. They would probably have an advancement in their long-range missiles program, right? So how does it fit in it? The idea of the cyber kill chain is to show you what the usual hackers will do. So it will show you that the hacker will first do the reconnaissance. try to identify the entry points. Like, what's your IP address? What's your email? What are your locations? Everything that I can find, usually online, without connecting to your network. And then, after reconnaissance, what the hacker will do, it will go into the weaponization, delivery, and exploitation mode. Weaponization, create something that I can abuse. Create something I can use to break into your system. And then deliver it. Push it somehow. And then exploit after the user, unsuspected user, ran that application. Just to give you a simple example. You all get a USB dongle, USB key in your bags. Yeah. I will plug that USB key at home on my DIP computer, which is not connected anywhere, and that is fully isolated from everything, and then I will probably revert to the previous state or reinstall after that, because I do not trust any external media whatsoever. Now try to imagine that you are entering your company. I'm paranoid, I am. They call me Mr. Paranoia. That it comes with your territory. That's what I do. I know what I can do, and I consider myself a little baby in comparison with the rest of the population in this area, in this space. So if I know what I can do, and I'm a little baby, I can just imagine what the big brother can do, right? So I have to be paranoid. So imagine the following scenario. You work in company X, and you have a garage, or parking, or whatever. And then in the morning, you see a USB key on the ground, and you pick it up. And it's 128 gigabytes USB key. Beautiful. What is the first thing that most of the people will do when they enter the office?
Make coffee.
Sorry?
Make coffee.
I would say they will plug it in, right? After the coffee. Yeah. And when they plug it in, what will happen is questionable. Sorry?
USB port.
Yeah, it could be, if this is bank, and if this is a company that is dealing with that in such a way. But most of the USB ports are not blocked, and they allow you to plug it in. Now, I don't have it with me, it's in my room actually. I have USB keys that are not USB keys at all. You just plug it in, and it's basically a keyboard. And they start typing the things, like running the commands and giving me access to your machine, just when you plug it in. That's why most of the hotels do not accept your keys anymore. They will say, send me an email to print that PDF to you. And then I will put something malicious in the PDF instead. Okay, so as I said, after the reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, and exploitation, when the user clicks on it and put it in the computer or whatever, we have the installation that doesn't even have to happen. Installation means that the malicious user will install their tools. But today, most of the APTs are LOLs. I'm not saying laughing out loudly, no. I'm saying living off the land. Living off the land means I will be using the tools already on this computer. PowerShell, there's nothing more I need. Bash, there's nothing more I need. So I can use these tools to do whatever I want to. That's the idea. So I don't want to install anything that will be triggering alarms. And I will stay present for years. You heard about SolarWinds, right? Do you know how long the threat actor was in it, in their network, before they realized that? And they realized that from third party, because third party told them so. Do you know how much, how many days, weeks, months, years?
16 months. 2 years.
Less than 2 years. 1 year and 3 months, if I remember correctly. It was in 2019, they broke in. In 2019, 6 months later, they released their code with the official patch. And 2 or 3 months after that, they removed it. Because 2 or 3 months after that, they had access to everybody they wanted to have access to. Microsoft, IBM, and all the other companies using the SolarWinds. And they realized that almost a year later, which is really, really bad. So then we have the command and control. The hackers want to have a command and control. Your machine will be connecting somewhere else. And this is easily detectable in most of the cases. It's a network traffic, and you can see it's out of normal behavior. And then we have the actions and objectives. Basically, I'm going to do what I came to do. So I'm going to steal your data. I will encrypt your files. I will ask for ransom. I will just stay there and lurk, whatever my objective is. What they're trying to tell you, what Petrunić is trying to tell you is, you can block the hacker, and in each of these steps, the sooner the better. And the meter attack framework fits into that. So pre-attack, first and the second, reconnaissance and weaponization is the pre-attack part. So these are tactics. And 3 to 7, so from the delivery all the way to actions or objectives, we have the tactics that are over here. So the idea is to use that to recognize malicious activity before it gets to number 7. Because if it is on number 7, you lost something already. You might be, you might have a problem with the dreaded GDPR. Everybody is scared of GDPR since 2016, especially May 25th, 2018, when it actually became active, right? Because of the 20 million euros, or 4% of your income, whatever is bigger. So what is the target audience? The target audience is, I have 15 more minutes, right?
Right.
Okay. So the target audience is SOC, NOC, Security Network Operations Center, because they will be able to check the things, to check that you are collecting all that you need, that you are not missing something. Ability to respond faster and stay ahead of adversaries. Blue, red, purple teams. Offense-informed defense. So the blue team, protectors, will be informed about the problems from red teams. And the purple teams will be able to find the threats earlier. Consultants, it offers better insight into tool capabilities. And education and training, you can use it to create specific scenarios. That's what I usually do. I create the war games for you. And then you are playing these war games. Your blue team, your red team, purple team. Purple team is trying to see what's happening. Red team is trying to attack, and blue team is trying to prevent it. And this is the pyramid explaining you what is red, blue, purple, orange, or whatever team we have. I'm interested in these three, even though I should be interested in the build them and development, because today everything is DevSecOps. It covers all of that. So, what can I do with it? You can do data, detection and analysis, A, assessment and engineering, T, threat intelligence, and A, adversary emulation and red teaming. This is what you can do with it. Unfortunately, 45 minutes is not even near enough for me to explain all of these things. But I will try to do my best in the next few minutes that I have left. So, detection and analysis, you can do the SOC maturity test to see how mature your SOC is. Assessment and engineering, you can do the assessments on the gaps that you have in your protections. In the threat intelligence, again, you can do behavioral analytics. You can try to see how you can try to use behavioral analytics to protect your infrastructure. Many tools today actually do that. And adversary emulation and red teaming, basically helping me and you to emulate the attack. We can create a scenario. If you're in the specific industry, you know exactly what the attackers want. we can create a scenario and try to see whether you are able to identify it. That's the power that we can use from the attack also. And why should we care about it? Because no matter what you do, you are still vulnerable to something. You cannot close everything. Even if you have all the possible protections, there is something missing. And you can read that in the news on a daily basis. So there is no such thing as, you will say, free lunch. Yeah, that's true. But there is no such thing as a 100% secure system. That doesn't exist. That's why this will help you get closer to that. And I have a demo. Demo is 1 hour. So, because demo is 1 hour, I've pre-recorded the demo and I put it on the tinyurl.com/deep2021. And the password is deep conference in lead speak. So it means it's uppercase D, 33, uppercase P, uppercase C, 0, NF3, R3, MC3. You can download the video and watch it. You can download this presentation from the same link. And I don't know where the recording will be available. So, what is the demo about? Because I will not be able to show it to you. It's 1 hour. I did create 10-minute snippet from it, but this is too fast and you will be lost probably. The idea is to watch it with the full explanations. So what I did in the demo is the following. I did the initial compromise. This is the initial scenario. The initial compromise, this is scenario number 1. So, I have Word document that is exploiting 2 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks, old vulnerability in Microsoft Word. If you didn't patch your system in the last month, then you are 99.99999% vulnerable to that. I'm saying 99.99999 because I'm not certain, there is nothing that I'm certain 100% of. I'm not even certain that I am here right now. So 99.99999. And this is quite fresh exploit. And the assumption is that the user will open the document. In the demo, you will see that user has to do something else. He has to click on the enable editing or changing the document. And if he does that, that's it. And you will see that by doing that, I will have the initial access to the system. Then, what I did in the demo is I tried to steal the user password. So I'm on the machine and I'm a limited user because this machine is not misconfigured. This machine is fully patched except for the last vulnerability that was not patched. And this machine is part of the domain, and this machine is using the least privileged logic, which is normal today. I didn't use the machine that the user is running as local admin, because that's not so common. It's not so common anymore. At least it's not supposed to be. And I was using the technique 1056, sub-technique 002, input capture, GUI input capture to get the password from the user. So user opened the document, I get the shell on the machine. User closed the document, I still have the shell. So that's it. After that, I run a PowerShell script, actually command, that popped up a Windows password dialog box, original one, with the username already pre-populated. And if the user types the password, I have the password. That's it. After that, I go to the additional compromise. In additional compromise, scenario 1, I'm using this machine to pivot through the network. Basically, I'm using this machine to spread my wings to all the other machines in the network. And I'm using enough scanning through the proxy chain. So basically, from my machine to the machine behind the firewall, I have an access. Even though this is not supposed to happen. With the technique 1000, this and that, and this and that, then I try to identify and extract Active Directory user accounts with a simple net user command. In the command prompt, there's nothing more that I need. I can enumerate all the users. Then exploiting the remote server with another interesting exploit from 2021. You probably heard about it. Print nightmare. Because after you first patch it, it was still exploitable. Then you patch it again, and it was still exploitable. And then you patch it again. Come on. After 3 patches, you can still hack it. That was really, really silly, wasn't it? And then I compromised the domain controller by using the pass the hash. I usually call this pass the hashish, but they told me I shouldn't. By the way, I had a lecture about pass the hash on the Cool and Days conference 10 years ago, I think, and I called it pass the hashish. And I had so many people rushing in. And then I said, unfortunately, we will not be passing the hashish. And then few of the people just left. They obviously missed the lecture. So pass the hash is really powerful stuff. I don't have to know your password. I just need a hash. And I got it on the machine I compromised previously from the server admin. That's it. Entire domain is mine. And then I explained the variations in the demo. I'm telling you what I could have done differently to hide my tracks from your antivirus and all the other detections that you have. So, this is the lab. I was using pfSense firewall, and attacker is, let's say, on the simulated internet. And these machines are behind. So, first I had the client. How? The client opened the document. This is the assumption. So I had to distribute it somehow with an email or whatever. In this demo, I literally downloaded it manually from the client and ran it. After that, everything happened from this machine. After that, all that your tools will be able to see is that this machine is attacking your service, not me. Because I'm using this tunnel I already have to send my data to another site. If you're ever using the SSH to create a tunnel, that's it. The same logic is behind that. So the demo is actually on this slide. It's 10 minutes, the fast version. But as I said, I'd rather spend the time explaining it and let you see the real demo, which is 1 hour, than to spend the time and quickly go through the steps I did, because then I wouldn't have enough time to explain all the things behind it. So, it is important to understand that if you are not familiar with all the techniques described in the attack, that's okay, because neither am I. So, even though I'm using this for the last few years, I still do not know each and every technique, because I didn't need it. So the idea is your team to learn about it. So if you are threat hunting, if you have SOC or NOC, ask your team to take one technique a day or a week, depending on how fast you want them to adopt this, and to try to understand it and try to see whether they can capture it. One technique per day or per week or whatever. And they will learn a lot. Take out from this presentation, use zero trust model. What's that? That means that you don't trust anything. That you do micro-segmentation, that everything is pushed to the endpoint. So you're not protecting your infrastructure with a firewall, big one, like you did like 15, 20 years ago. I think that from 2007, I am preaching that. So not as you did it like 20 years ago, but you will push the firewall to each and every endpoint. That's the normal thing to do. It is. But that's not only a firewall. It's about everything else. Try to micro-segment things as much as you can. Do not trust anything or anyone. People must trust us. Do not trust anything or anyone. Okay? Not even the people, because they must trust us. Simple example. When you log on to Active Directory, that's it. You log on to Active Directory, and you can access all the things with your user account. Micro-segmentation and zero trust model, when you implement it the right way, will have additional checks, like multi-factor authentication popping up when you do privileged things. That's the idea. By using attack framework with some additional tools mentioned here, you could recognize the previous attacks and prevent them in the early phase. So you can use other people's knowledge, and this is other people's knowledge. Just use it in your infrastructure, and it will be good for you. Play war games, at least annually. War games are fun. War games are good. War games are allowing you to grow your blue team much faster. I had a customer in UK, and they didn't have blue-red teaming concept in the company. We implemented it, and 1 year later, their blue team was a million light years away from where they were a year ago. Blue-red teaming, purple teaming. All of these things are really, really powerful stuff. And I gave you the starting point. You have links to start with the attack framework. Read about it, check the matrices, read philosophy papers, interesting graphics on the page, read the blog posts, and watch the online training about threat intelligence. They have an online training on YouTube that is explaining how to use it in the threat intelligence. If you need it for that, that's probably the best resource to follow. And then, some additional tools that you might want to use. They have a list of community projects, a large list. And the ones that I'm using, and you should probably try to use some of these, Red Canary Atomic Red Team, Caldera, Purple Shark, Splunk Attack Range, especially that one, and you can do so many things regarding the war games. I'm using the Splunk Attack Range to prepare the scenario. And then we have everything in Splunk. We have attack in Splunk, and then you can analyze it and try to see whether you are capable of finding the attack. When it happened, how it happens, who did it, why, that's probably not the answer that you will be getting, but who, how, and when. These are the answers that you will most certainly get. And to wrap up, because time is almost up, what to do next? We have Meter Attack Framework. It teaches us what and how the APTs are hacking us. Use it. We have Atomic Red Team. It gives us the tools and how to test the attack techniques. Atomic Red Team, Red Canary, is actually a list of scripts and the tools that the hackers could use to do what was described in the technique. So basically, it gives you an idea what kind of tools they are using. And it gives me, as a pen tester, an idea what I'm missing in my tools. And how can we use this in blue, red, purple team scenarios? Blue team, you can learn the techniques and try to block it. Red team, you can learn the techniques and use them. Attack framework, and red atomic red team, red canary. And purple team, you are the one that will make it count. Create a testbed and do the attack simulations with the Splunk attack range, for instance. I gave you some terms. And again, I gave you the link to the presentation. My time is unfortunately up. Thank you for your time.